G'day, welcome to Realms of Power. My name's Dr. Tony Rudd and I'm the host of this show. The purpose of Realms of Power is to turn your true aligned power on, or turn your tap on, as we like to say. We broke this down into 12 different realms in our very first episode, and we've had a whole lot of guests come on the show to help with their specific area that might help you turn your power on. Now, this is designed for people that might be stuck somewhere, down on their power, low on energy, or just want to live their most unbelievable, magnificent life. So my background is a chiropractor for 25 years, helping people turn their power on through alignment and optimizing of their nervous system. I've seen such phenomenal change. I've also been a life coach in the personal development field for almost 20 years, helping people physically, chemically, emotionally, spiritually, all the different realms. And it's been an honor to be able to help so many people. That's why we've done this podcast. Now, if you'd like to find out more, I have a personal website on www.tonyrudd.com.au, and we have a Facebook page for Realms of Power to access all the episodes. They're available on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, all of the different platforms as well. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Have an awesome day. See ya. G'day, welcome to Realms of Power. I'm Dr. Tony Rudd, and today I've got a great guest, Yasmin Mahic. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Tony. It's a pleasure to be here, my friend.
Oh, thanks for taking the time. And in Realms of Power, we've got a whole bunch of different realms, and sometimes it's good just to go back and have a look at those, because your story today, mate, will cover off quite a few of those. We've talked about physical power as being one of the realms, and that's so important, our physical body. We've got chemical power, whether that's drugs, whether that's nutrition, whether that's water, air, all of the different chemical things that affect and interact our power. Then we've got emotional, and we've got financial, we've got environmental. What's the environment you're in, and how does that affect your power? Of course, then there's relationships and even your life purpose, mate. There's so many that all interact with each other. How would you agree with all of those?
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more, Tony. It's it all goes around in circles. The more of these realms that we can hit, the better off we're going to be.
Absolutely. So our purpose here with Realms of Power has always been to turn your power on. And I feel so honored and blessed that we've had such amazing guests on the show, all with their unique life experience. And I believe there'll be something in your story for some of our listeners, whether they've been through something similar or know someone, because it's the journey, isn't it, mate, that really helps turn your power on.
Definitely. I mean, I think ultimately it's what we go through shapes us as human beings.
Absolutely. So for our listeners, would you be comfortable to go back in time and just give us some of your story of, I guess, maybe when the power wasn't working its best, what led you to that, and give the listeners a history of where you've been up to, and then we'll go from how you've got out of that moving forward.
Sure. I'd love to, Tony. So just to give I'm going to try to explain it to the best of my ability. So I was born in 1988. The war broke out in Bosnia in 1992. So we had to migrate to escape the war or risk obviously being killed. A lot of our people got killed during the war. Luckily, we escaped and we fled to Germany. I was 4 years old at the time. We stayed in Germany for 6 years. After the war, didn't want us there anymore. Basically, they said, you need to go back to your own country or find somewhere else to go. So we were lucky enough to come to Australia. We moved to Victoria. They were amazing to have us. We got the citizenship, so we didn't have to go back to, as you can imagine, Tony, war-torn country. The war was over, but the damage was done, right? Especially the little village that we come from. It's still, to this day, it's not what it is, right? So we moved to Frankston. Not too sure if anyone knows where that is. I was 10 years old when we moved to Frankston and didn't know a word of English. So that was a bit of adjustment, for mum and dad. My dad's still not the best English speaking, but we got along all right. Now, growing up in Frankston was very rough, very rough. Quickly, I found myself getting involved with the wrong people. Having said that, I can hand on heart, I can never blame anyone for what I've been through. If I could do it all over again, I wouldn't. However, I wouldn't change it for anything because I believe that my journey has led me to be the person I am today. And I'm grateful for it as hard as it is. In a nutshell, I started getting involved in drugs quite early. I started drinking when I was 14 years old. By 16, I was already taking ecstasy and those party drugs. And later on in life, by 17, 18, we were experimenting with speed and amphetamines. And you know how it is when you're young, it's all like fun and games until it's not. For us, unfortunately, the education wasn't out there. Methamphetamine was just starting to rear its ugly head, and there wasn't the education that there is today on it. Like when you speak to people and all the great ads that they've made, meth, not even once, there is that understanding that it is a life destroying drug, right? Unfortunately for us, there wasn't that understanding because speed in itself, it was bad as well. Don't get me wrong. However, it wasn't so mind destroying as methamphetamine is. You see it now on TV and you just actually see the rampant destruction it has caused on humanity as a whole, right?
Yep.
It's worse than heroin. It's the number one drug that you actually have a very low lifespan. Let's say about 10 years, 20 years, if you're lucky, before you're either dead in jail or whatever it may be, right? So to cut to the chase, so started experimenting with methamphetamine when I was 24 years. By the time I was 27, it wasn't fun anymore, right? So I couldn't get momentum, right? Obviously, my tap was completely turned off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Alcohol in itself is, as you would know, Tony, is quite bad. However, when you're throwing such a strong chemical negative drug into your system, it just causes complete shut off, right? So I struggled with that quite deeply. And then when I was coming towards 30 years old, I decided that I needed to clean myself up. It got really bad. I got in trouble with the law. Luckily, I never spent some full time in jail, but I spent some good time at the watch house, and it was all starting to come down on me quite quickly. So I decided to do my first rehab. It's very unconventional rehab. It's called the vomit rehab. I don't know if you ever heard of it, Tony. No. So basically, it's you go to Thailand. You can only go there once because they make you take a vow that you're never going to take drugs again. It's called the last resort rehab. And the reason why you can only go once is if you've relapsed, you've obviously broken that vow. And Buddhist monks, they take that very seriously. So that was quite an interesting experience. And they give you this special medicine that they gather from the forest there. It's got about 160 different ingredients, and it's the most bitter tasting thing that you would ever taste, Tony. You drink it and you get in line with all these other people. And basically for the next 20 to 30 minutes, you need to drink your water and vomit it out because it's super strong, it's potent, but what it's designed to do is to detoxify, right? So anyways, long story short, I've spent close 2 months there. 2 months I spent there at the rehab and came home and I was on top of the world, or I thought. I lasted about 6 to 8 months before I relapsed really badly again. I was living at my brother's house at the time, and yeah, he moved to Queensland already, but I was renting his house out. under the conditions that I would stay clean. And obviously, when I couldn't come up with my end of the deal, he decided that it wasn't going to be a good agreement because obviously I was not a good person to have in your house. So that's when Tony, I really hit my low point, kind of get emotional talking about it. But that was the time that I attempted to take my life. There's a certain drug, it's called GBH. Not sure if you're familiar with it, but it is quite a potent mix. They call it liquid ecstasy, but it's anything but. It's made of all these harsh chemicals, under the counter stuff, cleaning agents. Anyways, about a small dose of that, it can be fatal. And I took like 10 times the amount of that to make sure that I did the job correctly. So luckily for me, my housemate's girlfriend was there, called the ambulance. Basically, they had to get 3 ambulances down and worked on me for like 2 hours before I was stable enough to put me into an induced coma and take me to hospital. And basically, I woke up with tubes out of my mouth, right? The nurses said there that it wasn't a suicide attempt, it was a suicide prevention. So that if they were there even an hour later, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. So yeah, that was a very low part of my life, but got through it. We ended it, decided that we're going to move to Queensland. And again, I made that common mistake of thinking that I could run away from myself by moving location, but didn't work. So even in a beautiful town like the Sunshine Coast, I managed to find substances, and the cycle continued until about 3 years ago when I decided to go to rehab again. There's an amazing facility called Who's here on the Sunshine Coast, and that's where I spent 4 months and cleaned myself up and have been clean ever since.
Man, what a story. Like, God, it must take a lot of courage to even share that story. And you've had many highs, many lows, I'm sure, through that whole experience. Let's just go back to the decision, because I think here this is a path that you've got to make a decision. And even in the drugs and the addiction, the actual chemical addiction that you must have been through, you somehow made a decision, and you've made multiple decisions. Tell me about how you made that decision from that space. Where did that come from? Was that something right down in your intuition, which is just the deep core of you? Where did it come from?
The decision to take the substances?
No, the decision to, oh my God, I've done myself in to the first one. I've got to go to the vomit base and I've got to clean myself up. Where did that decision come from?
That's a great question, Tony. So believe it or not, even as I was going through my drug stages, I always knew that it was like a deeper knowing that I'm not meant to be here. It was like a deeper knowing that I'm going through this for whatever reason may be. As much as I didn't understand it at the time, I understand it today. And like I said, I'm grateful for my experience, even though I wouldn't wish it upon anyone. But to answer your question, it was a understanding that, okay, I need to get off this sinking ship because this could be my final ride. So yeah, the decision was I needed to just clean myself up because I had all this living to do. And I knew, as silly as it might sound, I knew the greatness that I had inside me, like we all do, right? We all have this greatness inside us. It's just about realizing it and aligning with your true purpose.
Aligning with your true purpose. I love you saying that, because again, you've come out of a war-torn country. God, what an upbringing you've had. Even just that, coming into Australia without the language and then being in that rough area of Melbourne. There's so much challenge in each one of those things, let alone then going down that path that no kid would probably choose, but for whatever reason, sometimes through circumstance or environment, that's the path that they've been on. And for you to have the fortitude and courage to go back through rehab 2 or 3 times and clean yourself up. How do you feel now about the fact that you've been clean for 3 years?
Oh, Tony, I feel absolutely amazing. And People always, they ask me, like, because through this rehab, I've stayed close with the facilitators there and, obviously the people I went through, it was a very small success rate. There was close to 98% of relapse rate. I feel amazing to be part of the lucky ones. As far as feeling, I feel absolutely amazing.
Mm. So what do you find now? How do you, in that keeping yourself clean, what are you finding now have been the things that have helped your power stay on that path as best they can be?
So purpose for me is it's when I think about what has kept me feeling amazing, it's the fact that I'm waking up every morning and when my feet hit the ground, Tony, I'm actually excited to be alive.
Mm,
Right? And I think that that is so important for anyone, especially recovering addicts. You need to have some sort of reason to get up in the morning and actually enjoy life, right? I know we all got to pay bills and money needs to come in, but I believe that we've all been put here for a reason. And when you tap into that power and you realize what your reason is, then taking substances like alcohol or drugs, it's just going to be, you will actually wonder why you ever did that because your life is so great because you've tapped into your power. You're in tune with what you have actually been put on this earth playing field to do.
mm. Well, look, addiction is such a broad topic, and obviously we're talking in your case
Mm,
about drug addiction,
mm-hmm,
which is certainly one of the bad ones in terms of there's a chemical component as well that
mm,
actually attaches to the neurons
mm,
and can cause that. One of the other addictions that is so common these days is addiction to the mobile phone.
mm,
So there's not just drug addictions, there's now
mm,
social addictions, there's a phone addictions, there's some people are addicted to good things. They're addicted to exercise,
mm-hmm.
they're addicted to things that are healthy for them. And if you had to be addicted, choosing something good
Yeah,
versus something bad
yeah, sure.
really ties in though to that thing you said, which is purpose.
Mm-hmm,
Because if you don't have the purpose, you will just get drawn into whatever the addiction is.
mm-hmm,
And that's, I think, a big message for listeners. I did write a book, an
mm-hmm,
ebook last year called Clearing Your Addictions, because I
mm-hmm,
think this is such an important topic. The topic of addiction, as
mm-hmm,
much as the topic of, in your case and your example, that
mm-hmm.
almost ended your life
Mm,
is drugs.
mm.
So, can you speak more into how you found that purpose? Because a lot of people have heard of finding your purpose and there's techniques. How did you find and what is your purpose?
Yeah, so yeah, you bring it's such a good point, and especially like social media is something that really scares me, especially for the younger generation, because we always like to compare ourselves, and I think that social media can be such a dangerous tool if you do not realize that it is all made up, that majority of these people that you are comparing yourself to not actually living that that life, right? So I know I'm going a bit off topic here, but I always say if you want to compare yourself, always compare yourself down. Don't compare yourself up. Because we are all so lucky. If you got a roof over your head, if you got food in the fridge, I'm telling you right now, you go a little bit out, travel to Indonesia or any other country, and you'll actually see how these people are living. So if you need to compare yourself, have a look around and get off social media because that can be bad. But to answer your question, Tony, how did I find my purpose? I guess, first of all, I really got honest with myself and with the relationship of myself. Like I think part of the reason why I was always taking substances was because I didn't feel enough or I didn't feel worthy or, I just wasn't aligned with what I needed to do. When I got out of rehab, I realized that I was going to do something different. I really got true with what I really wanted to do and started looking at what am I good at and what are my passions. right? And I decided to follow that because if you look hard enough, you will be able to find a way that you can actually make this money that we all need to do to pay our bills in a way that is on purpose, like for yourself, Tony. You you do chiropractic and you're amazing, but you also do this, and it's part of your journey, and it kind of turns your tap on. So did I explain that good?
Absolutely. Hey,
Yeah.
that's a brilliant definition. It is, again, it comes under what we've talked about in realms of power is doing stuff you love doing. And that
Mm,
helps create the ultimate freedom for you never to have to feel like you're working again. Because if you've found that passion and you're getting paid for it, yes, we've got to leave finances in this
mm,
society. But if you're doing something that you love and you just, as you said, I think that there's something so important about what you said. When your feet hit the floor in the morning, that first
mm,
morning thought and the morning routine of living that purpose, because we could work on our purpose, couldn't we? We could write it
mm,
down. We could do a workshop. We
mm,
could write it down and then put it in the cupboard and not actually live it
mm,
every day. It's that habit and ritual of working on it every day that keeps bringing it back on center.
mm, yeah, definitely. And I think it's like also, everyone has that desire, I believe, to follow their purpose, but it's, I guess, also fears that keep us doing the same thing. Or I could never start a podcast, my voice is not good, or I can't do this, or I could never do that. Where in fact, if you just give it a go, it's actually the end result is irrelevant because you are fueling your being. And you find that when you're on purpose, you are vibrating at a higher frequency. And when you're vibrating at a higher frequency, things just happen. That's what's allowed me to go from drug addict to business owner to having 5 locations throughout Australia to finding the love of my life, like in the space of 3 years. How did that happen? It happened because I got true with myself. I realized what I wanted to do and I just put one foot in front of the other.
Mm. Well, look, I love that. I
Mm,
think that's such a beautiful story for the listener out there. And again, so many people have that doubt
mm,
or have that fear, and that does stop them. It paralyzes people. They get in
mm,
analysis paralysis. They
mhm,
think too much. They overanalyze, or like you said before in the socials, they compare themselves. And even if they do take those first steps, they get that failure syndrome or
mm,
I'm not good enough syndrome.
mm.
So what would you say to the listener out there that is wanting to make a shift, to make a change? How could they, from wherever they're at, whether they're already successful, whether they're not successful, wherever they're at in their life, how could they start with finding their purpose?
That's such a good question. And, you know, Tony, if you are alive and you are listening to this podcast and you are above ground, you've actually hit the jackpot already. You know that there's a 1 in 400 trillion chance of us being here, right? So you've hit the jackpot. I think what I would love to, if I can paint a picture to the listener, is that there's actually not much to do. You are already here. You've hit the jackpot of life. I believe that as beings, we are limitless, right? Not as human beings. As human beings, we've come on this earth playing field to feel some sort of limitation, right? Because how fun would it be if I could just snap my fingers and have everything I want? I mean, it would be cool. Don't get me wrong, but within a couple of snaps, I'll be like, okay, well, then we've come here to be challenged, right? So I think what people need to understand is that you've chosen. It's not a coincidence that you've chosen to be here to play this beautiful game called life. You just need to understand that you've already won. Whatever you're going through is just part of the journey. You're going to get through it. But like, don't take yourself too seriously because life is amazing. And when you die, you die. Nothing is going to matter, right? So whether you're a millionaire, a billionaire, or poor, all that really matters is that how you feel inside. If you're happy, if you're around loved ones and you're enjoying life, that's it.
Well, like you just said before, if I can bring back your example of some of those other countries that maybe aren't as fortunate as Australia in terms of our infrastructure, our wealth, our resources, and some of those poorer countries. However, on the flip of that, some of those people are as happy as can be. They're just so content that they're with their life, with their simplicity. And I think we sometimes in the Western society do make it a little more complex than it needs to be.
Completely agree with you. And like I said, social media is really bad for that. Those people, like I said, I've traveled, I've been to Indonesia, and like all they're worrying about is a roof over their head, what they're going to eat, and they are happy, right? Whereas we've got everything, yet social media or us inside, we feel like we're not enough because comparing ourselves to the billionaire on Instagram that is actually either not real or it's a facade, or even if it is real, who cares? You've got food in your fridge, you've got a roof over your head. You have no idea how lucky you are. And if you go out and travel a bit, that's when it really hits home on how lucky we actually are.
What a beautiful message. And in one word, that is gratitude. It's gratitude for our life. It's gratitude for wherever we're at. It's gratitude even in the learnings that we're here on our human experience to have some learnings. And realms of power, the point is to look at all of those realms and go, okay, how can I max it out? How can I improve? How can I get out of these stuck traps? And that doesn't mean that you have to always be 100% living that Insta life, if you call it that. It's about finding the journey and the state of being. And one of those amazing states you're talking about, of course, is gratitude.
Gratitude. Yeah, 100%. And also realizing that you don't need to be perfect in your mind, whatever that is. You already are perfect, and as long as you are putting one foot in front of the other and you're having fun, and not to say that I'm not trying to say, oh, just sit behind now and do nothing. What I'm trying to say is also try to better yourself, because when you better yourself, when you go see a chiro, you get adjusted, when you go do a workout, it also produces natural endorphins and you feel like that, you are achieving something, right? I believe as human beings, again, we come here to play this game and achieve things, right? That's why, when they say depressed, if you want to break it down, depressed. If you're depressed or you're anxious, try moving a little bit. I know you talk a lot about that. Movement is what we human beings need. And I think that's also super important when it comes to unlocking your realms of power. And listening to Tony is also an amazing thing.
Yeah, when we talk, obviously, some of our principles are alignment, and I think the word alignment is so beautiful. Whether it's our spine, our back, in alignment is better. Our alignment of our principles, our life, whatever. I think that's all important. And I'd love to just touch on it because I know there's a couple of things you're super passionate about as well. We talked just before come on the podcast today just about water. Tell me about how important water has been in your journey of healing.
Oh, water is life, right? What are we, 80% water? Yeah, so water is so important. And I believe that anyone and everyone that takes their health serious, before you go to the doctor and get prescribed a pill, how about you look at what you're consuming, right? What am I eating? What am I drinking? And also the water that you're drinking, are you filtering it? I don't need to go into it. Everyone knows that they're putting stuff in our water these days that should not be in there. So water is super important. You want to make sure that you're always hydrated and that you're drinking not just water, but good quality water.
Oh, so good. And the other one, of course, is air. Breathing.
Yeah. You don't have a far without it, right?
Yeah, you betcha. So you do some breathing techniques in your rituals and mornings, ice baths, you do all that stuff. Just give the listener a sense of what you do with your breathing, water, like routine and ritual.
Sure. So, yeah, definitely. At home, I've got an ice bath. I've started cold plunging now for a couple of years, and I've found that's amazing. I've also got a sauna at home, gym setup. So I'm making sure that my body is as fit as in my mind, right? Because, like you said, Tony, if one is not aligned, you can be super happy up here between the ears. However, if your body is not happy, you're not going to be happy, right? Body mind connection, you talk about that a lot. Very important as well, meditation. Sit down and meditate. Like people say, oh, I can't meditate. Can you close your eyes? Yes, you can meditate, right?
Yep.
It's that simple.
Yep.
Yeah, your mind's going to race, but that's the whole beauty of it. It's about trying to slow down the mind. So I'm very, like I work out at least 4 times a week. Again, you don't need to overdo it. You don't need to compare yourself to the Instagram influencer, of who's most likely on juice. You just do what makes your body work, whether it's going for a walk, sitting down, taking a moment to actually enjoy this beautiful, amazing thing we call life.
Oh man, I love that. All right, well look, let's look at wrapping up this podcast today, Yasmin, and I appreciate so much you sharing your message for our listeners. Is there anything finally you'd like to share today that you feel just comes from your heart of a message that might help our listeners with their power and living their best life?
Yes, I just want to say you are beautiful, you are amazing, you are enough, and you've got the power inside you. You have to just realize that you can do anything you set your mind to. It's just about getting in tune with your mind, body, and soul and having an awesome time, enjoying this thing called life. Because you know what? Soon we're all going to be dead and it's not going to matter.
Oh man, I love it. What a beautiful message for our listener, mate. Thanks.
Don't take it too seriously.
I love it. Well, mate, thanks again for coming on the show and giving up some of your time. To our listeners, once again, thank you so much for tuning in and being part of this journey. I really appreciate you sticking around and taking the message and sharing it with friends and family that might benefit from something like the message we've had today. So thanks again. Have an awesome day. See ya. Wow. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Realms of Power. I have such gratitude for your time and energy and the vision to join us with turning your true aligned power on. To take your power up another level, you could share this episode with someone who you think would benefit or make a comment online that would help us get this information out there. We'd really appreciate your love and support. Hope you have an awesome day. See ya.